Hello, so here we are back with self-care shorts for 2025. A happy new year last time, so a happy new year and again. But yeah, we're early days of the season, the 2025 season, and this year, well for now, I'm going through my new book, Pillars of Success for Social Workers. But don't be put off by the fact it's got social workers in the title, because if you are into your self-care, then there's a lot in here for you. And what I'm doing is that the book is in kind of two sections. And the first section is kind of key ideas for self-care, well-being, productivity. And then the second half of the book is kind of hacks for self-care, productivity, because one feeds the other. That pillars model that I've got. And while I've written about social workers, for it is my profession that I love, really they're quite universal, and I'm going to talk about some of that. So don't switch off just because it said social worker in the title, because some of this is quite generic, although obviously I do sometimes relate it to social work, and one or two of the things are specifically using research about social work. So anyway, this episode is about reframing stress, reframing that word, breaking down this kind of catch-all term, because I actually think it's unhelpful. The word stress gets thrown around so frequently that we just ignore it now. I think when people say they're stressed, I think we just ignore that fact because we're like, well, yeah, we all are. It's just the way the world is, isn't it? And it is, but that doesn't mean we kind of need to accept it, So when we say we're stressed, well, what do we really mean? And it's many things, and this is the problem with it, this overwhelming flood of responsibility maybe. And that can be at home or it can be at work. I'm going to talk about that in a future episode, that split. You might feel swamped. You might just feel tired all the time, and that persistent fatigue just saps your energy to kind of keep on doing stuff. And what I find is by breaking it down, and I'm going to give you some examples, we kind of open the door to more concrete strategies, I suppose, than just saying I'm stressed, what do I do about that? Because that's massive, isn't it? And actually, one of the things we've got to acknowledge is that a little bit of stress in the short term is really good for us. It ignites that response in us to get stuff done. It's like, right, okay, let's go. Let's get on with some stuff. Flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. Come on, let's do some stuff. So a little bit's good. So talking about stress is like, well, yeah, a little bit of that's a good thing, So let's talk about other things. So let's start to kind of label it differently, because in labeling it differently, we can reveal which of the pillars of resilience we maybe need to build in. Is it emotional? Is it cognitive? Am I just not thinking straight? Have I got too much to think about? I'm overwhelmed. Is it physical? Am I just feeling lethargic? Am I feeling tired? Am I feeling run down? So all of those things, emotional, cognitive, physical. Am I feeling as though things are on top of me because I've either got too much to do, which is a distinct possibility, or I just haven't organised the stuff that I do have to do as effectively as I could. So by kind of breaking it down into those kind of sections, by breaking it down into those ideas and using different sorts of words, then maybe we can think about stress in a different way, in a more focused kind of way, because if you're saying you're overwhelmed, I'm just overwhelmed by everything I need to do. Right, okay, well, let's have a look at what you've got to do. Let's prioritize some stuff. Let's ditch some stuff. We often hang on to stuff that we're trying to do when we've gone way beyond its value, its worth in our lives. We'll talk a bit about kind of having a why. Why am I doing this? How does this thing that I keep hanging on to, that I'm trying to do, how does it fit with my purpose and what gives us meaning? And sometimes we hang on to things that just did, but now don't. Well, just let it go. So maybe we prioritize if we're feeling overwhelmed. If we're feeling tired, well, that could well be the impact of stress. It could well be the impact of working long hours, working hard. But it could also be that we're not sleeping well because we're not getting our kind of sleep hygiene, as we call it. We're not getting that right. Or we are deliberately going to bed late because we want a bit of our time. And I get that. Completely get that. Particularly if you've got kids, people who've got kids talk to me a lot about this. Get the kids to bed by 8:30, whatever it is, 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I want some of my time. I get that. The problem is that if you then stop at 12 o'clock and the kids are up at 6, you've only had 6 hours sleep. You do that night after night and suddenly you've got a sleep problem, which leads to other problems. So we've got to re-engineer that. We've got to re-engineer and think about that. We've got to kind of recalibrate. It's one of the words I use in this section in the book. So, if you're overwhelmed, we prioritize. If you're tired, we think about sleep. And actually, if you're tired, we think about exercise sometimes, maybe as a source of producing energy. So moving from this nebulous concept into actionable items by calling things by their name and not just saying I'm stressed. I feel physically drained, I feel under pressure, I feel tearful, whatever it is. We can break all of that down. We break stress down into its constituent parts, its experiences. And then we intervene by focusing on those kind of things. We move beyond the buzzword of stress and we embrace its complexity and we think about how we build resilience in a particular area to respond to that stress, because rightly or wrongly, maybe that stress is not going to go away anytime soon. If the thing, let's be honest, and I've had 2 boys, let's be honest, that having kids is stressful for all sorts of reasons. They're having children and looking after them comes with all sorts of emotional kind of feelings, comes with all sorts of emotional things to deal with. Your child isn't doing well, they're getting upset because when they go to school or what it happens to be, these things create emotional turmoil within us as well. So if we figure out where to build this resilience, in which of these pillars, then we can figure out kind of what to deal with most effectively. So resilience is a dynamic thing. It's not something you build up and have lots of, and then you use it up, and then you've got none of it anymore, and then you build it up again, and then you empty the tank, and then you build it up. It's kind of a buffer or a window, as I describe it. We've got this window. We've got this window of resilience that we play around in, and sometimes we feel as though we're right down at the bottom end, where like everything's coasting, and we've got bags of headroom. Sometimes we feel right at the top where we've not got a lot of headroom anymore. So resilience is kind of more of a protective layer that kind of shields us from the adverse forces kind of around us. I suppose it refers to a capacity to overcome adversities that would typically kind of lead to kind of negative things. We kind of see a thing, and I'm minded of the Stoic philosophy, kind of saying the obstacle is the way. Sometimes if we're resilient, we feel we can push through the obstacle, because the Stoics would say that the obstacle is what we need to kind of get through or round or over, but we need to get past the obstacle. The obstacle is their way. So this concept of the resilience window, of constantly having a level of resilience available to us that we top up periodically across the hour, across the day, across the week, is really important. Across the year, is really important. That it's not just something we top up on and then we go hard and then we top it up again, then we go hard. That's not how it works. We've got to nurture resilience, and for me, there are 2 things that go hand in hand: resilience and emotional regulation. And if we can emotionally regulate ourselves, then we tend to be more resilient, because emotions just drain energy. Emotions drain energy more than anything, I feel. More than having a complex job to do. The emotion of having the complex job to do does. The emotion, going back to the kids, the emotion of needing to get the kids to places and make sure they've got their shoes and their football boots and all that kind of thing. It's the emotion of that which is the starting point for the element of stress that is, feeling frazzled, feeling frustrated, feeling out of control. It's the emotions of that, not the practicalities of it. The practicalities are another layer. Got to have enough energy to get enthusiastic and get everybody in the car and get them to where you want to go. But it's the emotions that are draining us, So we need to think about how we build resilience in those 3 pillars of resilience: physical resilience, emotional resilience, and practical resilience. How do we, what cognitive strategies, what workflow strategies, what life flow strategies are we considering? And we need to do them routinely. I'm keen on saying, and often say, that it's what we do day in, day out that makes us resilient or not the week-long holiday we take, not the whole weekend of chilling out on the sofa or whatever, if you get that luxury. It's not that. It's the little things we do repeatedly. It's taking 5 minutes out to maybe write something in a journal, or meditate, or just to look at the trees. It's a few minutes doing that, on top of a big break on a night to go to the cinema or out for a meal with someone or whatever, on top of that. But it's those little things that are really important. And I mentioned meditation and mindfulness. The best explanation I've ever heard of that, it's not mine, is that mindfulness is the manifestation of meditation in your day-to-day life. So if you learn how to meditate, you meditate a lot. Well, not a lot actually, just meditate routinely, daily maybe, but not for like hours, but just for 5 minutes. If you meditate regularly, you build up that skill of being mindful in the moment. So being able to focus on the thing that's in front of you. And studies have shown time and time again that higher levels of mindfulness promote resilience and significantly predict lower levels of burnout, underscoring, if you like, that these practices not only sustain our well-being but also our professional effectiveness, our life effectiveness. So when it comes to building up these resilience strategies, I'm a fan of John Calvin Maxwell's observation that hope is not a strategy. So hoping that we'll have enough resilience is not good enough. Hoping that we'll have enough resilience to get us through the week or the weekend or the year is not enough. We have to do something with that. We have to cultivate habits, and we'll come to some of those habits. We have to cultivate habits that mean we recover and mean we grow. And this means setting time aside, prioritizing this time and not the other things. And I know that's hard. I know that's difficult in the storm of professional life. I know that's difficult. It's setting time aside every hour for a few minutes, every day for a bit longer, every weekend for a bit longer, periodically throughout the year for even longer. Setting these times aside, that is going to mean that we can generate this resilience, which will help us cut through that stress, but not cut through it in a I'm just going to keep going kind of way, but cut through it in I've got strategies to deal with this. I've got strategies to deal with the diary. I've got strategies to deal with the home life, meal prep, exercise, whatever. I've got strategies to deal with the home life. I've got strategies to deal with how I'm feeling about things. That's what resilience is. Having the strategies in place to confront life, confront what comes at us and say, right, I've got you. I've got this. I've got this. So there we go. So reframing stress. Let's stop talking about stress. Let's talk about overwhelm, tiredness, emotions. Let's talk about those kind of things rather than just talking about stress. I'm afraid, I'm overwhelmed, I'm feeling vulnerable, those kind of things. Much better. And then let's build resilience, but we have to build resilience in the day-to-day, hour by hour, little things that we do periodically. And lots of the videos on the website are about that. and you can find them, and we'll talk a bit more as we move through this season of little videos. All right, take care. See you soon.